Hey guys, Tyler with Meeple Mountain here, bringing you another board game review. This time from our friends at CMON, who've been kind enough to give us a copy of their new cooperative game that they have released, Stranger Things Upside Down. This game allows you and up to 3 other players the opportunity to explore and reenact the scenarios and situations that you found yourselves in seasons 1 and 2 of the critically acclaimed Netflix show Stranger Things. You'll play and take on the role as friends and allies of 11 as you try to unravel and navigate the mysterious world and situations you found yourself in those first 2 seasons. You'll be working together to overcome obstacles and defeat opponents so that you can emerge victorious and rescue Will and maybe close a gate or 2 on your way. So without further ado, let's get to the table and learn how to play Stranger Things Upside Down. Welcome to the world of Stranger Things Upside Down. Here we have the board state set up and preset for the first scenario that reenacts the situations of Season 1. If you're familiar with the Netflix show, you'll know that the entire narrative revolves around trying to rescue Will, who's been trapped in the Upside Down. You'll take on the role of Will's friends, who will start on the top side area of the map, and you'll be working together to rescue Will. To do so, you'll need to complete these 3 rescue Will challenges that will be laid out on the Upside Down area. They're going to be kind of represented by this stack of challenge numeric values. These tokens will range from a value of 0 to 5, with a special Demogorgon token or 2 mixed in as well. You'll be working to overcome these particular challenges and rescue Will. For this scenario, you'll win the game if you're able to remove those sets of tokens on all 3 of those rescue Will slots. Here we have the game state set up for 2 players. We have Nancy and Mike Wheeler, who will be setting out to rescue Will in this scenario. Turns are incredibly quick and clean that follow a nice simple progression of movement, an action if possible, or a fight if mandated, and then refilling your hand. Play will continue with players oscillating turns back and forth following this very simple formula until a few things happen. Either 1, the game is completed when Will is rescued by completing these 3 rescue Will missions in the bottom of the Upside Down. 2, if the players lose the game by 1 player reaching the terrified state on their fear track. Fear effectively represents your health in this game. If any player becomes terrified, the game is lost. Or 3, if the players lose the game by running out of time by running through this act track on the top left. We have 11 up there representing the acts. There's 3 acts in each of the games, and those are represented by your deck of action cards. If you ever need to draw action cards from the deck, and there are none because they've been played, you'll reshuffle the deck and move 11 to the next act over. If she's on the 3rd act and you need to reshuffle the action deck, you have unfortunately run out of time, and the scenario also fails in that situation. So play will continue until one of those 3 conditions are met. Players are victorious, or they lose by running through fear, or running out the act track by running through their action cards. So this is the general flow of the map, but there's a lot here, right? What do these numbers mean? What do these enemies and tokens do? We're going to take a zoomed in look at each of those things, talk about what they mean, and then talk a little bit about how your turn will progress. But to kick things off, let's take a closer look at a player board and their actions and how those will work within the game board as a whole. Here we have a view of a player area that's a little more built out a little bit later in the game. You'll have your fear track that tracks effectively your health, your starting location, base movement, and a special ability. So keep that in mind as you play throughout the game of Stranger Things Upside Down. This ability will come into play and help you kind of have a little bit of asymmetry and help you get the edge over the game state and the board. You can always have 2 items as shown here. That's your max items. They're going to provide positive point values traditionally to the actions that you'll take throughout the game. You can also have allies that you'll find and rescue throughout the game, and those allies will provide a special ability as well that's applicable when it kind of is laid out on your turn. Those allies, you can have any number of them that you want as long as you have them rescued. Something that's interesting about Stranger Things Upside Down is that you cannot trade items or allies, so keep that in mind as you play throughout the game. Also, you're always going to have 5 action cards at the start of your turn. These action cards will range from 1 to 3 points and may have some additional symbology on them. They may have the friend walkie-talkie symbol, the danger red exclamation point symbol, or in some cases, both. When you play those tokens, it's just important to know that those symbols may come into effect. The walkie-talkie friendship symbols will come into play if you're sharing a space with another player. If you are in the same space with another player when you play that card, it'll add +1 to the printed value of that card. So in instance, this card, if I played it with a friend, another token, it would actually be worth 3 points instead of 2. The red danger explanation point symbols are kept until the end of your turn when you resolve the scene cards, which is kind of the game doing the bad stuff, right? You will draw a number of scene cards equal to the act track, which is 1, 2, or 3 cards based on the act, and then also a number equal to the number of red explanation point symbols that you have pulled. You'll tally those two together and draw that many cards. So playing a lot of red explanation point cards, while it could potentially be very helpful, is quite dangerous when it comes to the end of your turn. So be sure to plan accordingly. Now, as we mentioned, there are a few things that you'll always do on your turn. The first of those is movement. You'll always move, if you want to, up to your base movement, plus any number of cards that you want to play at that time. So if I played this card along with this, I could move up to 3 spaces. Those spaces have to, of course, be connected by the roads in the game. And I can move as far as I want as long as I don't move into a space with one of the patrol van standees or the Demigorgon Mini. There he is, we'll move him down there. If you run into either of these enemy types, along with Demodogs in the Season 2 scenario, you will then have to lose the rest of your movement and stop. But if you start your turn in a space with an enemy, you are free to move away with no penalty. Now, you can take actions throughout the game. There are lots of different actions on the game board, and we'll talk about those in detail in just a minute. But when you take those actions, a lot of times you may need to spend action cards to do and complete those actions. Some actions will automatically succeed as long as you play an action card, and some will go up against these event tokens, we'll call them, these explanation point tokens that have a value on them from range of 0 up to 5, with a Demogorgon token as well that has a variable point value. You may need to then play a number of action cards to make sure that your action succeeds, or at least have the highest odds of success possible. If those particular actions fail, you may take on fear, equal to the difference between the cards that you played and the tokens that you revealed. And of course, we'll showcase that in detail here in just a moment. Those are the actions that you can do as long as there is not an enemy on your space. If you are on a space with an enemy, you have to fight. That is not an optional action. You'll have to do that. And to do that, you will need to play a number of action cards that you want to play or can play, and you'll compare it against the strength of the particular foe that you're going against, and we'll showcase that in just a moment as well. Again, if you succeed, you'll remove a stack of tokens and potentially move these enemies away from you, which can be very beneficial for the future. If you fail, you'll take fear equal to the difference of the cards that you played, your action cards, and the revealed token stack value. So those are the different actions that you'll take on your turn, and regardless of the outcome there, at the end of your turn, you'll draw back up to 5 action cards in your hand and resolve a number of scene cards as the act plus the red explanation points that you played. If you ever need to draw action cards and the deck is empty or you can't draw enough, you'll move the act token 1 step forward, reshuffle the action deck discard, and continue to draw cards and keep playing. Unless, of course, you're on the 3rd act, in which case that would be a game end trigger. So with this general idea and information laid out for you, your hand of action cards, items, allies, and kind of the general flow of a turn, let's take a look at the main game board and talk about the various actions that you can take within a game of Stranger Things Upside Down. All right, here we have a topside view of the actions that you can play in Stranger Things Upside Down. Actions are predominantly broken up into 2 categories. You have actions that will effectively automatically succeed if you play any action card on them, and specific actions that will go against these challenge discs or a challenge number that you'll have to play enough action card points to overcome the pile of tokens. And those token stacks will range in the initial scenario from 2 all the way up to 4 tokens. These tokens range from a value of 0 all the way up to 5, and a specific little Demogorgon token that is a value that's variable based on the stacks of health that the Demogorgon itself has. And we'll take a look at that when we go to the Upside Down section to look at the actions you can take down there. So we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. But these number points can range a lot. If you have a stack of 4 tokens and you have some unfortunate luck, that could be a value all the way up or even above 20 points. So you'll need to have a lot of cards and modifiers to make sure you're able to pull these effects off. So let's go ahead and talk about the different types of actions that you can take, and we'll start with some of the actions that will automatically succeed if you play at least one action card. Now, it's important to note, too, that all actions have to be completed where there is not an enemy. If you're in a space with an enemy, you can't do any action within the game of Stranger Things upside down. You have to fight that enemy to drive them off. So be sure you plan accordingly and have maybe some tricks up your sleeve to move those enemies away if there's a really important action you need to take. So again, actions that you can do that will automatically succeed. One of those is at the police station. Gather info or get item. The get item action is going to allow you to play a card. As long as you play at least one action card, this will succeed. And you'll draw a number of items equal to the token that you've played, the point value that you have played. Each of these items will have varied and unique effects. They will give you additional bonus points, numeric value to the different actions you'll take, like Help 11 or to fight actions. You will look at all of the cards that you've selected. Say I had 4 even, 4 particular full items. I'm going to look at however many I pick, and I'm going to take one of them and keep that into my player area. The rest will go back into the discard, and that is the get item action. Gather info is quite similar. You'll play a token card, and you'll be able to flip some of these pieces face up. Now, the game starts with the tokens on the top side of the board face up. One of each of the stacks of tokens is face up, the rest are face down. As you go throughout the game, those will be face down. Everything in the upside down is also face down. So gathering info will allow you to know what that topmost tile is, so you can take some action and plan a little bit more accordingly as you go to take your various actions throughout the game. Calm down. Calm down is going to allow you to reduce your fear. Remember, if your fear gets all the way up to terrified, everyone loses the game. So you certainly do not want to do that. So a way that you'll heal effectively is to calm down. So you'll do that and heal your health that many points based on the number of points that you've played on action cards. So you can heal up real quick if you want. It's important to know you can't, of course, split those calm down points between other players, even if they're in the same space. So those are some of the actions that you can do that do not require combat or kind of playing cards against these token limits. Some that do, however, are Help 11 or Recruit an Ally or Investigate the Lab. So if you help 11 has amazing psychic abilities that she can give to you to help you in your quest against the evil that is within the game of Stranger Things Upside Down. These are all going to be representative of one-time abilities that if you overcome the challenge, the points here in the challenge tokens, you'll be able to use that ability right away. It's a one-time ability, so make sure you plan accordingly. But these abilities are very powerful and can be quite helpful as you plan your actions throughout the game of Stranger Things. To overcome one of these challenges, you would play action cards with a point value that you believe is going to beat whatever's here. So we know there's 4 and something. So say we played 6 points worth of action cards, and we would reveal these then and see that we actually completed that challenge and would gain the ability of the Psionic Shield right away. If, for instance, we did not, however, overcome that action, we would lose health or take on fear equal to the distance, the value in the point tokens here as to the cards that we played. So if the point value was an 8 and we had played that 6 that we talked about in action cards, we would take 2 fear because we were not able to overcome this challenge. But even if you fail, you will actually then shuffle these tokens and remove one from the game and put a new one back. So in this case, as we saw there was a 4 and a 1 here, this could be a 4 or a 1, and we wouldn't know until we try to do the challenge or gather info to flip this over and see that this is now quite easy to overcome. So even if you do fail, you're still helping the team move the objective forward, which is great. Recruiting an ally, they're going to have a number of tokens in the stack equal to the printed value on the ally. If you overcome that challenge, you will claim this ally card. There is no limit to the number of allies that you can have, so of course, as always, having more friends is a good thing. Investigating the lab is going to help you as you uncover these tokens. It's going to let you ignore the explanation points on your action cards. Remember, the things on your action cards will make you draw more scenario cards, bad things, scene cards that will hurt you. So you want to ignore as many of those as you can, and you still need to play those cards. So the best thing you can do is investigate the lab to give yourself some tolerance, some buffer, so that you're not drawing too many of those scene cards to really ramp the board state up. So investigating the lab can be incredibly helpful. Let's take a zoom on look down at the bottom half of the map in the upside down and talk a little bit about the game setting there and some of the actions you can take. Here we have a look at the bottom half of the map in Stranger Things Upside Down, and you'll notice that you can access the Upside Down from several areas here within the board. From that, you'll move around, and some of these tracks will actually give you fear just by moving onto them, so plan accordingly. That can be very dangerous. The most important thing to note on this map is we do have another Help 11 or Get Item section here, but it's these Help Will sections. There's 3 Rescue Will missions that you need to complete, and if you do complete all 3 of those, each are a stack of 4 tokens, you will win the game. So that is your primary objective. So if you can rush those and get those done, that's a huge advantage. But these tokens can be quite challenging because, as I mentioned, they're going to have these Demogorgon tokens seated in them. So there may be several of these, one of these, we don't know. But these can be very bad. They're going to be a number equal to the health stacks that the Demogorgon has. Now, at the start of the game, he has 4 different unique stacks. And as you fight him, you can actually choose these stacks and remove them. If you beat him, you'll remove a whole stack, which is great because it makes him weaker, but it also makes these Demogorgon tokens weaker, which is incredibly helpful for overcoming your objective. Now, you might think this is very easy, but the thing is, a lot of the scene cards that will pop up throughout the game, as we'll see in just a moment, can actually add to his health pools. He may actually begin to add additional stacks of health. So now this went from being 4 to a 6-point token, all the way up to what could be an 8-point token. So as you try to rescue Will, you need to also be mindful to keep the Demogorgon's health in check so that these are challenges that you can actually beat and overcome. Remember, you're trying to do all of this with only 5 cards in your hand, so your amount of points you can put out is limited. So you'll need to make sure you plan accordingly and try to strategize to weaken the Demogorgon before you go to rescue Will. With that said, let's take a zoomed-in look at some of the scene cards that you can expect. Again, these are the cards that add to the negative state of the board, so let's give you guys a little idea of what you'll be up against in Stranger Things. Here we have an example of some of the cards that you'll find within the Season 1 scene deck in Stranger Things Upside Down. Now remember, at the end of each player turn, a player is going to draw a number of these cards and resolve them one at a time based on the act track, which will be 1, 2, or 3 scene cards naturally. Then they'll draw additional scene cards for every explanation point on action cards that they played that they weren't able to ignore based on board effects or gear or things like that. So you could end up drawing a lot of these cards to resolve in a row, which can be dangerous. As you see, there's all kinds of effects that can happen, from things that move the federal patrols around the map, as well as things that will move the Demogorgon, give him additional stacks of health, which is super dangerous, or cause a lot of fear to build up very quickly. So you could have your friend be getting terrified on your turn if you're resolving too many of these cards. You could find that the Demogorgon goes from almost defeated to very, very healthy quite quickly. And so the board state can turn on a dime if you're not mindful about managing your explanation point generation and running through the act track. So there's a lot of fun strategy here on how do you advance through the game, right? Do you try to rush the game and kind of just blitz your cards and not worry about the scene cards and hope you get lucky? Do you manage the Demogorgon's health? Do you manage your explanation points? There's a lot of conflicting objectives that you need to balance within this game, and I find that really engaging. There's a lot of fun and a lot of flavor that kind of seeps through from the scene deck, and it's really enjoyable to watch that come to life on the board state. And that, in a nutshell, is everything you need to know to jump in and have a really good time playing Stranger Things Upside Down. But what did I think about it? Well, I'm glad you asked. There was a lot of fun to be had in this game. As you guys know, I'm always a little picky about my co-op games. There's always that kind of danger of quarterbacking and things like that, but I had a really good time sitting down with what CMON has put together here for this title. The theme is just dripping through the game, and I really enjoyed the art and the style that this kind of brought to the table. Now, there are 2 scenarios in the main game. The first one is much easier than the second one. The second one, along with increased difficulty on objectives and things, it's spawning like demi-dogs, so there's extra enemies moving around the board that you have to continuously kind of play whack-a-mole with. There was a lot more to manage, and it felt really chaotic and really good for a co-op game, so I enjoyed that. But I love that there's kind of 2 difficulties and a really nice tutorial. The teaching on this game is quite simple. Draw 5 cards, you can move if you want to, you can do an action, or if you have to fight. That's it. Things are quick, clean, actions and turns move quickly, so everyone stays engaged with the game. All positive things, especially in a cooperative game, in my opinion. Now, the rulebook, really well done. There's a setup section for the first scenario and the second scenario, so there's no questions about like, oh, what do I do? Is it this or is it this? Everything is very clear and laid out for you, and I really enjoyed that. So again, this is a nice little game. It comes in a nice, pretty small size package. Everything stores nice in a little game tray divider. I think there was nice attention to game state. Everything kind of packs up and puts away really quickly. The only little comment I would have is the tokens are kind of annoying to manage just because there's so many of them to start the game, and you've got to get the Demogorgon tokens in the right place and make sure they're back. So that's a little tedious, but that's like a minor complaint at best. Other than that, I really enjoyed the title. The difficulty feels palpable when you're trying to manage and guesstimate what's going on with the tokens on the board, and I really enjoyed just kind of the conflicting objectives that you have to navigate. Do I want to focus on getting a lot of info so I can make the most efficient actions that I can? Do I want to get those explanation points under control so I'm drawing less cards? And the more cards I play, of course, I'm running through the acts quicker, which means I'm running the deck out, drawing more scene cards. So it kind of just things snowball in a really fun and dangerous way. So all of that was really good. So I would say if you're looking for a co-op, especially in this theme, if you're a Stranger Things fan like I am, this game is really fun to play. You get to kind of rope in all those allies and friends and kind of relive those early season moments in a really fun, tangible way with your buddies. Now, it's worth mentioning this is a 2 to 4 player game. There is no solo. You theoretically could certainly play two-handed. You could just run 2 characters, but it is designed for at least 2 players. There's not a full like solo mode, but you really don't need that. You just need to make sure you play with 2 characters. You couldn't do this with just 1 person. You'd get overwhelmed, which makes sense. There's a lot of fun to be had here. Rulebook is well done. I didn't have any confusion about what I needed to do. And the price point on this game is really manageable. It's certainly not going to break the bank to add this to your collection as well. So with all of that said, if you're interested in a cooperative game, again, this is kind of a 2-bite thing. There's a first scenario and a second scenario. I wouldn't say there's necessarily super deep replayability, but the different characters and their asymmetry, different scene cards coming up, like there's certainly a chance to play this a few times. I would love to see expansions or some kind of add-on where we can do the additional seasons. I think there's certainly merit to new boards and new cards for every season of the game. That would be really fun, but excited to see what CMON kind of does with that as well. But just things to keep in mind as you decide if you want to purchase this game. But really enjoyed it, and I hope that this review was encouraging and exciting for you, and it helped inform if this is something you want to add to your collection as well. As always, I want to thank you guys for coming to Meeple Mountain. Your views and your comments and stuff mean a lot to us. We're a pretty small, little scrappy company, and we do this because we love board games. We like to put content out into a hobby that we're all actively engaged in. And so if you guys like what we're doing, please like and subscribe and let us know in the comments below. We always check those and really appreciate you guys' engagement and feedback. So I hope that you'll continue to come back to Meeple Mountain for your board game review needs. And as always, happy gaming.
Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out these links to find some other games you might want to bring to the table. This is Tyler Williams, signing off.